morning, I introduced to all of you our event chairs for today, and I described the cross-partisan nature of our chairs and why that was intentional for us. And so I've asked Dan Schnur and Leslie Katz and Kristin Olsen to help us wrap today. We're going to do two quick things. First is I'd like to do a lightning round and ask each of you to reflect on something you heard today that you're taking home with you.
One of the things I heard from a few of the speakers, most recently Mike, in a most compelling way from Kristin Campbell and Carolyn Luxon, is that democracy is a team sport. And Mike put it very, very well that allowing this partisanizing democracy is bad for both sides, no matter how committed you are and how smart you are and how correct you are. And if we're going to make this work, it means finding common cause with people with whom you disagree on issues that are very important to you. It's easier said than done, but at least acknowledging it is an important first step.
Thank you. First, I just want to thank JCRC for organizing this, and Abby and Jessica and your team. As I sat through the day, a theme kept running through my head, or I guess a quote from a former mentor of mine, that you can disagree without being disagreeable. And I think kept hearing grains of that throughout every presenter, that it's okay to disagree, but there are ways of doing it so that you can have the civil discussion. And I think having the bipartisan nature of today's discussion, the presentations today, and I guess I was going to echo the same thing that Dan said about democracy being requiring participation. But what I was struck with earlier, a number of different quotes, but one that resonated with me was, how do we help everyone come home safely? And I think that's really a metaphor for what we're trying to do now in terms of preserving our democracy. It's bringing everyone home safely, all of us coming together with a common goal to preserve that.
So yes, I'd say thank you to JCRC and others for putting this on. It's up to every single one of us individually to protect, promote, and preserve our democracy. It's the only way it's going to survive is if we're all doing it together. Thomas Jefferson once said, we don't have government by the majority, we have government by the majority who choose to participate. And that's every single one of us who's here today. For my lightning round answer, there's so many takeaways, but I think I would say, let's get out of our own echo chambers, let's seek those who think differently than we do, and let's spend time just listening to them. And I think that all of us will get to a better place in our country if we get out of our own echo chambers, seek opposition, and truly listen to how they feel about issues.
Thank you, Kristin. I wonder if you would then start us off also with the last question of the day, which is, help us now think about all that we've learned in the context of California. What are you thinking about in terms of California's future, maybe the future of the Republican Party in California? Help us distill all of this.
Sure, I think the future of the party today in California is grim, pretty grim. It's one of the many reasons I'm involved in an organization called New Way California. I'd invite all of you to join us in our efforts, which are really bipartisan in nature, seeking to model civility, model solution-oriented leadership, be results-driven and responsive. I think what we've seen over the years, all of our speakers said, where we're at today didn't happen overnight. It's because so many people have felt disenfranchised for so long, and the risk of that is anything but the status quo, right? Whether it's authoritarianism, socialism, anything but the status quo. We have to push back on that by demanding and requiring and promoting responsive democracy. And so that's what we're trying in New Way, California. I think there are so many great examples in California, having been in the legislature for 6 years, of bipartisan solutions that lead to really good things, where people can move beyond partisanship. If we can continue to model that, then I think good days are ahead. I think the number one important thing, though, if that's going to happen in California and across America, is we have to test ourselves. We have to hold ourselves and our own parties accountable to truth-telling. And I really think if we're going to be critical, we should be critical of our own parties, because otherwise we're just playing the blame game, and that leads to even greater polarization. So as a board member of New Way, that's one of the things I'm constantly reminding my colleagues of is let's test ourselves. Are we holding ourselves accountable to truth-telling? Are we holding ourselves accountable to positive, can-do, solution-oriented leadership?
Leslie, California, the Democratic Party, what does it mean for our future?
The Democratic Party, that as once was said, never want to belong to an organized party. I'm a Democrat. I think what we've seen, and the theme that again that came out throughout the day, is we're in an era of, I think, extreme tribalism. Which tribalism can be a good thing. It brings people together to put forward good, healthy ideas. They support each other. They move forward. But I think of late we've fallen into sort of tribalism era where everyone is so balkanized and they don't want to listen to anyone else that's disagreeing with what they're saying. And I think we have to start moving past that. And I guess I'm heartened by the fact that maybe we've fallen to such a low that we now have so many people all engaging and trying to figure out how to get involved, how to fix it, how to participate. And we might go through some bumps and fits and starts as we figure out what that's going to look like. But a healthy society is based on having not necessarily full agreement with everyone, but having healthy disagreements. Again, disagreeing without being disagreeable. Having primarily a two-party system is not a bad thing if the parties can have healthy debate, but when it becomes so balkanized, you don't have those discussions, it's not so healthy for all of us. And I think we're getting to a point where people recognize we have to be able to figure out what's going on, how we got to this point in time, and where we move on from here. And that was, again, a theme I heard throughout the day, and I leave heartened that there's so many people that care about finding solutions, about bringing people together, and coming up with creative ways to have this kind of dialogue that is essential to understanding how to improve our society.
Yeah, final word of the day.
It's very easy in the deepest blue community, in a deep blue state, to think that divisiveness and intolerance is somebody else's problem. And I would argue very, very strongly that while the initial that comes after someone's name in terms of party registration is the easiest and most facile way to draw those lines of intolerance, it's not the only way. Even in a state that's dominated by one political party, the disagreements between education reformers and union advocates are as bitter and ugly as any I've ever seen between Republicans and Democrats. As every single one of us knows, the housing crisis that now exists in California is one that's ultimately going to be decided largely between Democratic Party advocates lining up on behalf of organized labor versus the environmental community. And I say that not to disparage either, but just to recognize that even in a state that until Kristin is successful, is a largely one-party state. All the things we talked about today in terms of teamwork and working together and trying to bridge differences are just as important within a state that's dominated by one party than it is in Ohio or Florida or Wisconsin. I'm a no-party preference voter, and we are known as no-party preference voters in California, as Lundy Weiser mentioned earlier, because the term independent was appropriated by George Wallace and David Duke many, many years ago. And the California state legislature, populated by Democrats and Republicans, understands that giving us the title independent would be too much of an assist to our efforts. We are the fastest growing party in California. We're the second biggest now. Among millennials, more than 1 out of every 3 voters aged 18 to 40 is registered as a no-party preference voter. I grew up, these guys are younger than I am, I grew up in an era with 3 television networks and 5 buttons on the car radio and 2 political parties. My children's generation has become accustomed ever since they were sentient to an unlimited number of choices when it comes to entertainment or opinion or information. And they will grow not necessarily a third party, but as our previous speakers talked about, a multiple party system, which I think among many, many other things will force organizations like New Way California, like the Mod Squad Democrats, to find a way to be more responsive to a range of ideological opinions. I'll close really quickly, Abby. One by echoing what Kristin and Leslie said by thanking you and your team for putting together today's conversation. I think there's a tremendous value, and I think everybody here would join us and tell me how grateful we are for it. So let's do that. What I would say to those who stayed until the end is there's been a lot of high-minded conversation over the last 14 or 15 hours, about working together and putting aside differences and looking for common ground. And obviously that's easier said than done. And the question is practically how do you make that happen? On the last day of every semester, my classes both at UC Berkeley and the University of Southern California, I give my students one final assignment. I tell them, I said, guys, I can't grade this assignment, but it's the most important thing I'm going to give you to do all semester long. And I can't check it, I can't grade it, I hope you do it anyway. I said, I assign every principal conservative in this room to watch Rachel Maddow once a week. And I assign every principal progressive in this room to read George Will or Bret Stephens or Yuval Levin once a week. I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm not even trying to open it. I'm just trying to remind you that it's the easiest thing in the world when you're stuck in your own ideological end zone to justify not reaching out to the other side because the people all over there are stupid or evil or miscreants. By exposing yourself to the Maddows and the Wills and the Stephens, you might not agree with them, but at least it's going to remind you that there are really, really smart people over on the other side. And even if you don't agree with them, it's worth a little bit of extra effort to find them. Ronald Reagan once said, somebody who disagrees with me 20% of the time is not my enemy. He's someone I agree with 80% of the time, which makes him my trusted friend and ally. But I would add a coda. Somebody who disagrees with me 80% of the time isn't my enemy either. She's somebody I can work with 20% of the time. I just got to be willing to work that much harder to get outside my ideological comfort zone in order to do it. Nobody wants to get out of their ideological comfort zone. It's human nature to want to talk to the smartest people in the world, listen to the smartest people in the world. Who are the smartest people in the world are the people who agree with me. But if we can push ourselves and use a conversation like this and a gathering like this, even if it is a group full of people who largely are still like-minded, that we can use it to remind each other and inspire each other that ultimately we succeed by reaching beyond these rooms and talk to people with whom we disagree on abortion and marriage equality and climate change. Because if we can find a way to work with those people, and that's how they say democracy. Thank you very much.